Text fields in Flash Professional can take a variety of forms for different uses. This lesson examines the different properties and uses of text fields. So here I have what's basically a stage and one big text field on top of it. And this particular text field, if I select it, we can see it's classic text and it's also static text. So what we're going to do in this lesson is just run through a number of the properties that pertain to text fields. So this little drop down here changes the orientation of our text. Right now it's horizontal. We can change it to vertical if we wish, which of course does not work for English. And vertical left to right, similarly, not suitable for the English language. However, there are languages that should be vertical, and Flash has support for these. The first item we have here is position and size, and this is the same sort of position and sizing that you have on most every element that is visual within Flash Professional. So X and Y position on the stage, starting from the top left, and width and height settings. This little lock will constrain the width and height. We then have our character settings. So these settings allow us to choose our font family, a style if that's applicable. In this font right here, Decade, there is only one style, regular. So we don't have a choice of bold or italic. We can choose to embed this font if we want, which in the case of static text, you don't really need to because when you compile, it becomes embedded text anyway. We can choose the color with a color picker. And we can choose to auto-kern. You can see as I toggle this on and off, the text shifts a little bit. That's because auto-kern is going to determine by itself how much space should be between all of the letters. We can choose our anti-alias settings. So we can tell it to use device fonts, bitmap text, and actually let's zoom in here. So you can see bitmap text renders everything pixel perfect. Device fonts, everything looks okay. Anti-alias for animation is good if you're moving stuff or for larger text or complex text like this. Anti-alias for readability is going to try to preserve a certain crispness that makes it easier to read. This is very good for smaller paragraphs of text. And then we can choose to custom anti-alias, in which we can choose thickness and sharpness. I'm going to choose anti-alias for animation in this case. We can choose whether we want the text to be selectable, and you can see that render text as HTML and show border around text are actually not applicable on static text. However, if we were using dynamic text, those would be adjustable. We can set to superscript or subscript portions of our text. And that's character. For paragraph, we can choose left aligned, we can choose right aligned, justification along the left side, or to center the text. We can also adjust the spacing before a paragraph, and set that at 0. This is probably going to be easier to read when I have this left aligned. So let's pop that up to something like 60 so you can see that. There we go. So this is like a spacing indent. Unfortunately, it's seeing every one of these lines as a new paragraph here, which is why it's doing that. Then you have line spacing. So we can increase the spacing between lines if we wish. We can set our margins. And these will set along the left and right sides. And we can choose certain behaviors for this. So if I change this to dynamic text, we can see that we can choose from single line, multi-line, or multi-line no wrap. Additional options, we can choose a link. So if I put something like josephlebrecht.com. And then I can choose a target blank parent cell for top. When I do this, and I actually go to Control, Test Movie, Test, you can see that my little cursor turns into a pointer. And sure enough, it takes me to josephlebrecht.com when I click on my text. Simply clearing that out will disable that feature. And then I have the ability to add filters to my text, just as I would a movie clip symbol. As far as other things, I can group this text field. I can break it apart. So if I go in and actually go to Modify, Break Apart, we can see that each particular character in the text field becomes its own little independent text field. So why is that useful? It's useful because we could actually, in that case, go through and animate each one of these little pieces if we wanted to. We would have total control over each character in movement, in color, in size, and so forth. That's a lot of characters for this poem, but we could do it. So this has been an example of all the different properties available to us within a classic text field in Flash Professional CS6.